Welcome to the Zandbergen Report, where wealth strategies and investment wisdom collide, featuring your distinguished host and certified financial planner, Bart Zandbergen.
Welcome to our show of Dream Chasers and Wealth Makers. We are thrilled to be back in the studio today with a new episode of the Zandbergen Report. I'm proud to bring in the movers, shakers, and difference makers who are passionate about sharing what they have learned and what you need to know today. And today, I'm so pleased to have Mark Taylor and Dylan Mason of Mason Taylor Associates from Compass Real Estate. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bart. Good seeing you again.
Yeah, likewise. Second time's a charm, Paul. We made it happen.
Second time's the charm there. Well, you got two guests, so we had two intros here.
Yeah, there we go. So, how's everybody doing today?
Doing well, just trying to stay cool. Turn the AC on for the first time this year.
Okay, yeah, I see a little sweat going on over there, Mark.
Yeah, kind of scrambling with the two kids at home. They closed down our office for the COVID. Just trying to figure out where it is quiet with enough light in our house.
Awesome. All right, and Dylan, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having us, Bart.
Sure, of course.
And I'm going to get Bart to put his camera down a little bit so he doesn't hide behind it there. There we go. See if we can get him on the camera there, too. Everybody's there. You're all looking sharp and ready to roll here.
All right, let's do this. So, Mark, Dylan, again, thanks for being on the show. We are, as we've known and said for weeks now, we're in unprecedented times, and you guys handling the areas of real estate. First, tell us a little bit about your business and what you do and how you go about it, and then let's just kind of evolve into what's changed and what you see happening and so forth. So, let's start with what your practice is all about.
Yeah, no, thanks for having us. So, Dylan and I are business partners. We have been working together almost 9 years. Started our business partnership at Home Sotheby's, which is now Pacific Sotheby's, and few years ago, we were part of the 24 that took the leap of faith and jumped over and opened the Newport office for Compass. So we just celebrated our third year. So we're now just over 3 years. Our team has grown we are now at 7 people. We have 5 licensed agents. We have a new gal who is in the process of getting her license, and then we have a full-time kind of a marketing manager.
Okay. Now, how did you guys actually get into the business? You're both young gentlemen.
I got into the business, Bart. My mother sold and still has her real estate license in Northern California in the Napa Valley. So I grew up in and around real estate offices, and it was either that or the wine industry, and I wanted to get out of Napa and found Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar area, and set up shop right after college in 2005.
Okay, great. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I was, I took a different path. After high school, I moved to Mammoth for a few years, came down here, attempted to go to school, didn't quite pan out for me. I was bartending on the peninsula and had a regular, he and I got to know each other over the time. He introduced me to his real estate agent. At the time, my regular was a developer and had done several big developments each year. Introduced me to his realtor, who became my mentor, and he also mentored Dylan a few years before myself. So, coming in that way, Dylan and I were introduced by, his name is Greg Lombardi, and naturally, Dylan and I both we had this motivation. We're the only guys in our office that were in our 20s. At the time, I believe I was 26. We're both 26 years old. And we just wanted to, just like everyone who gets into real estate, we wanted to go after it.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of going after it, tell us how the last 3 months have been for you. How did it start with the whole quarantine, and how you've conducted business, and what has been happening over the last few weeks?
Yeah, it's interesting, Bart. What happened initially when COVID presented itself, there was I think what everyone was experiencing across all markets and throughout the world was, felt like the sky was falling. There was a lot of uncertainty, unprecedented times. And what we experienced in the real estate market was, prior to COVID coming to the scene, was we were cranking on all cylinders. The real estate market was humming along. It was a seller's market. It was busy. We were just getting ready to head into our busiest quarter of the year. And what ended up happening is when COVID hit, we were thrown into essentially a stalled out engine, a neutral market. Buyer demand dropped by over 50%. The supply of homes dropped over 50%. We still had a couple properties that traded during the early stages of COVID. And other than that, we were essentially circling the wagons. Everybody was pivoting, first off, to see what type of business we'd still be able to conduct. And really that first 30 days was trying to just understand and figure out, the extent of safety first, and then how business was going to fit into that framework.
So we all know economics is supply and demand. Did the supply drop to a level where it met demand, or was there an uneven dropping?
It was uneven. So there was still more demand than supply. And, speaking with a broad stroke for all of Orange County, that's going to take into account a significant amount of properties, under 1 million and under 750, which is crazy to say that that's the, lower end price points for Orange County. But across the board, as you start getting up into the million plus, 2 million, and then 4 million, that demand was lower than the supply. And we're starting to see that thaw out over the last 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay. So you got through the first 30 days, and then what happened? I'm sure there was adjustments as to how you could even show a house, right?
Correct. So there's a COVID-19 disclosure now that's required to be signed by the seller, the buyer, before any and every showing. So that's additional paperwork that's being covered. There's guidelines for entry into a property, wearing a mask, not touching anything. And then the way we're exposing our listings now, like many agents are doing, we're filming virtual tours of the property. We're having a 3D mapping for virtual tours online by potential buyers. And we're really requiring everyone to review the information, get comfortable with the floor plan virtually, so that when they're coming for a showing, they've checked the boxes and they're not going to walk into one room and walk out because they don't like the setup of a specific house. Okay.
So you've kind of streamlined the process, at least the physical process.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've definitely, we've broken a few rules here and there, a few boundaries. We're doing it very responsibly. I'd like to say they shut open houses completely down. We've still maintained a few open houses during this, and we're just operating them in a completely different manner. We're greeting everyone out front. We're only letting one party in at a time. We're only allowed 4 people at a time in a home. But when we greet them with the forms that they need to sign, provide them with masks, booties, pens, everything that they get to keep so no one's reusing anything. And also, we've really focused a lot on social media. And like what Dylan said, we're getting videos shot, not just the Matterport 3D. We're actually getting videos shot. We're focusing a lot on digital advertising, and it is hitting all the publications, papers, social sites, and we're announcing open houses by virtual Zoom or in person for private showings, and really just doing whatever we can to bring in as many people as possible.
So we're now 90 days into this, more or less. The volume of your sales, I guess, this period compared to a year ago, is it less or same?
So we've had this conversation several times over the last couple months. Bart, is our individual production for our team, by our estimation, we're tracking pretty similar to last year. maybe we'd have one or two other homes in escrow or listed. But those clients are simply waiting for some additional time to pass, and they're still going to be sellers and buyers. They're just pressing pause, which I think there's still a good chunk of the community out there that's just waiting a little bit to see how everything shakes out in the overall economy. But about 5 weeks ago, we definitely bottomed out as far as the decrease in demand and supply. And since then, really last 4+ weeks, demand across Orange County has gone up 72%. And that's trailing supply. Supply has only gone up 16%. So what we're still experiencing right now is a huge appetite for additional listings that we would have seen come to market April, May, June, be in escrow before July 4th, when we slow down a bit for the summer months. We're anticipating now that busy selling season simply being delayed into June, July, August, and a real busy third and fourth quarter.
So with that ratio of supply and demand, how has pricing held up?
So pricing, it's still relying on fair market value. We're not seeing pricing shoot up. In particular, pricing across the board did not take a hit as a result of COVID. So you still have to price your property appropriately. But again, it's going to be specific to the price point where you're at, what you can expect in terms of multiple offers or going over asking. So it's very price point specific and neighborhood specific.
I would think that the lower interest rates and potentially getting lower, I know that sounds odd, but that's got to be helping pricing and activity a little bit, right?
It absolutely is playing a huge factor with rates close to 3%. And I think the other thing is the lack of inventory is pushing buyers to secure properties and lock in a payment, as opposed to, gauging or trying to time the market perfectly of where we are in the market cycle.
It's a real thin fence to walk, I think, because there's the one side, okay, what if, and I know that's another conversation about the economy, especially even based on this last week, but what if the economy gets worse and the pricing of real estate goes down, considerably, versus do we lock in, to your point, a great interest rate with a great 30-year payment, whatever that term is, knowing what it's going to be, and still getting a good value on the house. So that's a thin line to walk.
Absolutely. And when we work with our clients, Bart, we always like to provide information and the two options and not steer. They've got to make that decision based on their comfort level. And, even Mark and I have a nice dichotomy. I'm a little more conservative in my views, and I like 30-year fixed loans and forget about it. I plan on owning a property forever. Mark likes, to be a little more aggressive with the arms and, go that way. So I think it really boils down to what somebody's looking at and their specific goals.
We all know Mark's a crazy kid, so that's.
But Bart, to answer the question a little bit fuller, like it is kind of polarizing in a sense that so a lot of the market that Dylan and I work are, 4 million and under. Probably actually realistically, let's say 3 million and under. That is 90+% of our business, and that under 4 million is primarily loan focused on taking loans. So I'd say the buyer pool of that is very, they're taking an approach of that monthly payment. Anything 4 million and up is mostly, even 5 million and up is going to be a cash buyer. So I think that market, I don't know what is in the future for them. I had lunch with one of the bigger agents who works mainly higher price point on Friday, and they have no clue what's going to happen. And, right now, why would anyone wealthy with this amount of uncertainty pull their cash out? Why would you take out 5 million, 10 million and put it in a piece of primary residency? It just doesn't make sense. So it is going to be very interesting to see that divide and kind of how our market reacts once a lot of those expensive homes have been sitting for a while.
Like many businesses in this current economy and current time, it is almost a day by day, because there's new news every day and new uncertainty and new scenarios like we had this last weekend. So I understand that. But given that, what do you see? Now let's talk about going forward. I imagine you're keeping the same protocol that you've just described with the following the guidelines. And I mean, I don't see any end in sight on that, at least not in the near future. Is that what you're seeing, or are you seeing more or any open houses, like legitimate open houses? Or is that not allowed yet?
We are still doing them. We're doing them in preparation to apologize if confronted, but we are actively doing them. And we're doing it very responsibly. We have sellers who want to sell, and we have sellers who aren't afraid of doing an open house. And I feel, again, very responsibly, I don't want to get in the way of their goals. And if Dylan or myself or anyone on our team is willing to hold that open house and maintain responsibility and, the protocols that the government has implemented, I think it should be okay. We're allowed to do private showings. So with the 24-hour window of time, why can't we show off an open house with a 20-minute heads up?
So this is going to be kind of probably a difficult question for you, but it sounds like you guys are very consultative with your clients. So if someone comes to you today and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about selling my house," what do you tell them?
It's a good time. Depending on their goal, actually, Bart. Let me rephrase that. I think it is very goal specific. If someone is looking to get out, they know what their next move is. They understand their steps. They don't need to wait to find it. With this little bit of inventory, I don't think it's a bad time to put a home on the market. I think it's you gotta, like to Dylan's point, you gotta be very price sensitive. I think pricing is the strategy we should really focus on and implement rolling out a new listing. But to answer your question, Dylan and I have a few new listings we're rolling out. We have one coming this week, and we've got a couple rolling out in the next few weeks.
Anything to that, Dylan?
Yeah, it's interesting, Bart. We don't get really asked that as often as you would think. Most of the time, our clients are familiar with the process. They have a goal in mind, and they may ask us, do you see any benefits listing now, or waiting for the smoke to clear, or waiting until later in the year? And our communication consistently is, hey, the only thing we can provide information about is what's happening today. And we can provide that with pretty strong certainty. Projecting out 3 months or 6 months, we would simply review the pros and cons, because, you can wait to sell your house and look like a genius. You could wait to sell it and be kicking yourself. So we want to make sure we provide, and I think based on the trajectory of what the market's doing now, we can reasonably assume strength for some period of time. But to your point, and in the state of our world stage now, that can change and make us all look silly at a moment's notice.
Just going to check if you have a similar thought. So from a financial planning or holistic planning standpoint, if the client asks me, whether they should buy a house, sometimes they're thinking about flipping. My general response is, if it's a home that they're going to live in, is that if they're going to live in it for at least 5 years, then I think that's a good time horizon, because you're never going to catch the low, you're never going to catch a high. But I think a 5-year cycle, take into account cost to get in, cost to get out, and so forth, that's a pretty reasonable time period. What do you guys think about that?
That's a great advice. And the real estate business became a day trade, right, in the early 2000s. And that is, I don't know if you know very many day traders that make a killing, but especially if it's not your full-time business, we would always suggest, if anyone's looking at owning a home for a 2 or 3 year period, we're very transparent in communicating that anything can happen in that 2 to 3 years. And yeah, that 5-year arena probably is right where you're hedging yourself as far as expenses versus renting, potentially adding value to a property, is one of the the ways right now in the market that you can build in some equity and protect yourself.
You find the day trading thing. So the only thing you ever hear from day traders is always their good trades. You never hear the bad trades.
Well, Bart, I have a couple friends who very passively have gotten into day trading during COVID because they have a little too much time on their hands. And I've heard some of the good stories, and you don't really hear a lot of the the off days. Just like golf too.
Yeah, that's right. Or fishing. Yeah, it's all the same. All right. We have a few minutes left. I was going to pivot to, of all things, wine for a couple of minutes. That's a passion that Mark and I share. Or anything else you guys want to cover on the real estate side before we pivot?
I just say, Bart, if you ever have any questions, anybody who's listening, no strings attached. We're really easygoing and always here to provide our experience and what we're seeing in any way we can ever be of service. That's really the space that we come from, and we enjoy helping people and meeting new people, and I know Mark's enjoyed his time with you as well, so appreciate it.
So Dylan, thanks for saying that. Dylan, how can people reach you with questions or otherwise?
So our email address is masontaylor@compass.com. Our Instagram is Mason Taylor Associates, and my phone number is 949-294-7832. And Mark's is 949-335-8698.
Can you do that, Mark? Can you?
Hey. Keep the questions rolling, Mark.
By the way, Mason is Mason and Taylor is Taylor. Paul always makes sure that I do that. All right, we got a couple minutes left. So I think how we met, Mark, is in two of our passions, which is, I'll say this with a very quiet voice, which is clothing and wine. So those are where our lives intersected.
We met at the Kier Duchesne 2 years ago, and I went with a couple friends that you're mutually with and made a connection.
And we all get our suits from the same place. That was part of it. Yeah.
Yes.
So you are a very young gentleman to be as into wine as you are. So how did that all happen for you?
I guess it started, I've always kind of enjoyed alcoholic beverages. I was a bartender for years. I got a little bit of knowledge.
A good start.
Yeah, right. I got a little bit of knowledge into the wine, but not really until I met my wife. We met just over 10 years ago, and we'd taken a couple little trips to Temecula. Dylan is from St. Helena, so we had gone up to visit his family and definitely was exposed. He introduced us to his friends. They took us behind the scenes, and we were exposed to kind of a world that I had not seen before, and it was very compelling. Got to try some wine that I would have never thought to purchase. At the time, we'd gone to Napa, Heather and I, on a great night. We're at $10 a bottle.
That's all changed, right?
That is, where our everyday drinker is, it's more than that. It's really gotten pathetic. But
And Dylan, did you grow up on wine also from Napa?
I did, and it was not so much for the taste, during high school. we were drinking some expensive grape juice and not really appreciating it, but going home and being able to take friends over the last 10, 15 years has been a great joy. And a lot of my friends, go to Mark first regarding wine than me. And I like to sit back and kind of just still participate. And it's beautiful country up there.
So my wife is not your biggest fan, Mark, because after our last get together and I joined like 6 more wine allocations, Pinot Noir wine allocations, she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, my friend Mark, I need to do this.
I do that too. All right. It's growing.
It's growing.
You sent me that list. It's the problem is when you start getting all those allocations, how do you say no? Which one do you choose? So you end up and they perfectly stagger it. I feel like they all meet behind the scenes. They perfectly stagger it. So you never get 2 or 3 in the same week, and kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then you get that monthly credit card bill, and it's,
not just 15 minutes ago, I got something, and they get you with the free shipping, temperature control, buy 6 bottles. So I got 6 more bottles of wine that I really actually didn't need. But anyway, okay, guys, I know we gotta close up here. So one of the things I get to do is ask my final thought question. It's an honor if I get of my show. And so either of you or both of you can answer this question, and that is, what is your ultimate lesson learned over your career as a real estate professional?
I'll say mine first. Mark and I are both 36 years old. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is nothing ever comes as fast as you want it, and it's a long road, and patience, and things happen exactly when they're supposed to and how they're supposed to, and you can control your attitude and your location at all times and stay focused on those things.
You want to add to that, Mark, or are you good with that?
Yeah, God, there's so many lessons. The first one that pops in my mind is just, it sounds dumb, but complete honesty, transparency, and if you don't know, just say you don't know.
That's actually really profound.
Years ago, and that was very embarrassing.
All right, we've already shared your contact information. Paul, anything else you can think of?
No, I just want to give you my address for those 6 bottles that you really don't need. You can just send them over.
All right.
Straightforward.
We might have to have Mark when we do our year-end holiday.
I think so.
Which is the best listened show, or the most listened show downloaded in the
most fun,
year.
Certainly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your expertise. Have a great day. Thank everyone who has tuned in, and we look forward to being in virtual studio again next week. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, Bart.
Tune in next week for the latest edition of the Zandbergen Report, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Catch up on our recent shows by visiting bartzandbergen.podbean.com. The Zandbergen Report is also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Interested in being a featured guest on our show, or have a question you'd like to hear us answer? Email podcast@bartzandbergen.com. Bart A. Zandbergen, CFP, and Letitia Burbaum, AIF, are registered investment advisors with Optivest Inc. and registered representatives with Gramercy Securities Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered by Optivest Inc. under SEC registration.